or Odyssey, Bit Chute, Rumble, or Telegram if you're brave. You're gonna need your asbestos panties for Telegram. It's pretty based. So Time Bandits, somebody in the comments called these shows something you remember fondly from childhood, destroyed by these Hollywood idiots. It's just another memory tarnish. And, and you can go back to the list of things. I know you're like, if you're over 40, there's a period of time in the 80s that, like, it might be a little bit before your time, but you watch this stuff in on reruns, and you can think of all those movies that they haven't yet redone, reimagined for streaming on Netflix or Amazon, and just go through all those one by one and go, oh yeah, so I guess Goonies is going to be up on the list, or Gremlins, or God forbid, E.T., or the rest of them. It's like, oh yeah, that's just a done deal. They're going to remake all that. I mean, they're probably going to remake Star Wars: The New Hope, Empire Strikes, not Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, they're probably going to redo Empire Strikes Back. And for a lot of this stuff, you're just better off not. Oh, I just want to see. I'm just curious. Nah, you're better off remembering these things as they were. Time Bandits, or what was the other one? Baron Munchausen, the loose sequel. Just remember them as they were. There's no point in seeing these kind of train wrecks. You've seen what Amazon and Netflix and Warner Brothers and the rest are capable of, or CBS, Star Trek Discovery, STD. That's great, aptly named. Like, you've seen what they're capable of. You're not going to get any surprises. Oh, they could do Gremlins. They could make a streaming show. It'll be funny. No, it won't. I mean, geez, how many like Dark Towers, book adaptations turned into a movie, or The Shining Part Twos do you need to see before? Oh, seems to be a pretty common theme here when you guys make anything within the past 10 years. It's all kind of the same. I'm kind of seeing the same thing repeated. How are those movies selling? Oh, they don't sell. So why do you keep making these movies? Oh, well, enter cultural Marxism. So Time Bandits creator Terry Gilliam report, and like everyone from that generation, from like even the Fish Call Wanda, or Fierce Creatures, and guy, there's so many of those movies that just so much better than anything you could make today. Anything that's been made recently. Like whatever these movies made at the time, they probably thought, Time Bandits, yeah, it's a pretty good movie, it's a pretty fun movie. You compare it to anything modern, you go, oh, that's like Shakespeare. Yeah, in comparison, fair enough, it is. Anyway, so he's unhappy with Taika Waititi's upcoming adaptation, because, I mean, come on, you know what it's going to be like. His disdain was obvious. He was supposed to be on the New Zealand set for 2 weeks, and he flew out after a few days because I assume he saw it was going to be what it was, a woke abortion. New Zealand's actually, what was it, The Frighteners, with that guy who was in that time travel movie, Michael Keaton, I think, was in The Frighteners. I think that was filmed in New Zealand. And then was the other one, it had two titles. One was called Dead Alive, and it was by the guy who did Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson. It was one of his earlier movies, and it was just so ridiculously over top. And you look at like something like, I forget the other alternative title, but it was called, say, Dead Alive by Peter Jackson. You can find it online. You look at that and like, oh, that seems like a pretty basic movie. Could you make that? Can you make that today? Using puppets and practical effects. Yeah, you could, but you're just not gonna get that. Why? Because it doesn't have enough pox, walks, diversity, pravda, cultural Marxism in it. Yeah, it was just a fun, simple, romantic horror comedy. Oh, are you saying we can't get anything good these days? Yeah, honestly, yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. Anyway, so Time Bandits, the '81 classic, was a all-star cast of alcoholic little people who mostly actually died later of liver failure, which made a sequel difficult. But it was a huge hit that was watched in the '80s, and every time it came on TV, hugely popular if you're over 40. I mean, there's so many of those movies. Like the Karate Kid, which, okay, so fair enough. I've heard that the new Karate Kid is, they did a decent job on that. Subscribe to YouTube. It's like, buddy, I make YouTube channels. I don't pay for YouTube. I can't imagine anyone. I have heard that paying for YouTube music, they say it's worth it. You get like just a ton of music. But I mean, you can also get music in other places also. So the kid travels through time, and he goes on a bunch of it. And the thing is, I go camping a lot, so there's no internet out there. You got to have stuff on a micro SD card for the run it through speakers. So the kid travels through time, and he goes on a bunch of adventures, and he gets chased by evil. And of course, since as Tolkien says of evil, it can't create, it can only mock. So the parasites in Hollywood decide to have Taika do a 10-series modern day cringy cancer version of it, because they can't create anything new. So they take something with a 40-year history of name recognition and they try to resell it. Looking at this, I should probably go back and watch this movie again. That's how good it was. Except, of course, in the modern version, they'll erase all the English people from the story that they make great and replace them with a diverse cast, but diversity doesn't include English or really any European because diversity means washing away the English. Will the show bomb? Probably. Almost everything now sucks. Let me guess, the little kid is going to be a Pox Walks female of colors who will be the Mary Sue purse puppy. And that's why I mentioned the Dark Tower and the Shining Part 2 because they did that swap for both of those movies. So if any of the little people are English, they will be stupid. So the purse puppy has to constantly get the Englishman. And what was that Anne Hathaway movie where she plays the witch? And they had swapped out the characters for that adaptation of the English book, I think. And she had there's a little pox kid, and he's got two sidekicks, and the two sidekicks are children of the light, children of the West, and they were just there as sidekicks. In the book, all three kids work together to solve these puzzles, and defeat the witches. But in the movie, because the lead kid was a pox kid, the two fair kids were just there as just window dressing. They didn't solve a single puzzle in the movie. You can find that movie online. It got the only heat it got was because the witches had their hands that turned into claws and it upset people for some reason. I mean, whatever. It's like what about the two sidekick characters who they serve no point in the movie whatsoever? Oh, what do you mean that's fine? That's very empowering. Yeah, not to the two European kids. It's not very empowering to people who are looking at those kids for kids who see themselves on screen. Oh, well, screw those kids. Yeah, that's pretty much. We're well cognizant of that is the narrative. Anyway, so they do everything where the purse puppy was constantly have to get the Englishmen out of trouble because they're so incompetent. Except, of course, they did build England and created English literature and were part of that triangle of innovation that invented everything cool. But for some reason in Hollywood, they're always incompetent and the pox has to be the big brain. It's weird that it's never portrayed the other way, which is, anyway, so how many commercials do you have to see before maybe the developmentally disabled blonde people who's chopping down a tree for the insurance company commercial and it falls on his pox neighbor's new convertible, and then the pox insurance guy has to come along and they just kind of roll their eyes and shake their head knowingly at these incompetent fair people because that's totally realistic. Anyway, so is this going to suck? How else could it go? Is there another pathway? In globalist Hollywood, there is no way to tell any classic stories. Look at what they did to Lord of the Rings with Rings of Power or Willow or Witcher Blood Origin. Or I'm sure, there's a bunch more I'm not even aware of. They removed the people who made this show great. I don't want to see the original characters replaced with these new characters because the original characters are what people connected with. It destroys the story, and it's not just me saying this. The shows bomb all the time. Like Hollywood's got a within the past 10 years, there's a lot of movies that have lost a lot of money. I mean, now movies are, for a movie to lose $100 million, $100 million is not unheard of. It's like, well, that money adds up. Even I know Hollywood's got almost infinitely deep pockets, but for like that Canadian Panda movie to lose $170 million, there's a Disney movie like 10 years ago that lost $333 million because of delays and reshoots. And by the time they got so far into it, they realized it's going to be over $300 million in a negative, which is a bizarre place to get into. Anyway, so when you replace characters, it's not the same story. That's not what people were on board with. Left wing Hollywood seems to value all this stuff, but we don't. We're different. We have different values. If you guys are just Hugo Boss tinfoil hat, if you want to tell non-European stories, why don't you simply just write new ones? They don't. Because disgusting. Very few people would watch them. They know people hate these diverse shows. The only way to get eyeballs on the show is to use the name recognition for bait and switch. That way they get a few curious people who have the member berries. They don't want to create something new because then they'd have to start at the beginning like the original show started. Like everything starts. Everything starts at the beginning and you have to you have to go through that time of finding an audience and connecting with people. It's like, oh yeah, we want to skip all the hard work and we just want to stand on the shoulders of people who came before us and use this kind of bait and switch kind of stuff. It's like, but everyone, all the original shows were successful because they started and they told organic tribal stories and they connected with people. These new globalist stories bomb because they don't connect with the viewer because they know this ragtag, diverse, found family, Bolshevik, Frankfurt School concept doesn't work for the simple reason that people hate each other. The old stories were more based in tribalism and nationalism, like stories told throughout the ages. The new stories don't work because they're obviously globalist propaganda. All they can do is keep grabbing these old properties and replacing the Euro characters with very much non-Euro characters, and then attack the audience. Oh, you guys just don't like, I don't know, Rose Tico? You just don't like Rose Tico because I don't know where she's from. From somewhere, right? Yeah, that's totally the reason. That's the only reason people didn't like Rose Tico. I mean, they like Lando Calrissian. Oh. Shit. Yeah. I mean, he was pretty popular, right? Right. And Princess Leia is, female. She was pretty popular also. Right. I mean, has Disney ever stopped to consider that perhaps they just made bad movies? Didn't connect with that audience? We're not gonna admit that. I mean, Solo did lose money, right? I mean, that's objectively true, and they seem to forget all this kind of stuff. And then they went into streaming, and they had one chance to turn around. And I think that was the Mando, and then they fired Gina Carano, and they decided we're just gonna piss off the audience as much as possible. And that's what they proceeded to do. Disney and Hollywood in general. I mean, it's all Hollywood. I don't even know what this is. I mean, what network is covering this? Oh, Apple. Okay, well, I don't have Apple. I don't even know anyone has a password to Apple. I got the passwords to all the other. So I'm getting the passwords to all the other stuff, like all the other networks, or the big four. And I look at it and I was like, yeah, I'm probably not even going to use that. I mean, what do I want to watch on if there's something I want to watch that's going to be so old, it's going to be on Odyssey, honestly, or going to be somewhere else online, and it's probably going to be like Casablanca or something like that, something like black and white. I got to go so far back to watch something without just the insane interpretation of it nowadays of everything's got to be Pravda. Even though, I mean, obviously, Casablanca was its own version of propaganda, but at least it had some character to it. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.